We all know about the raid bosses from Smash Ultimate. A very unique roster of bosses which each and every one has a different playstyle and puts up a pretty good fight as well. Similarly, we all know about the amiibos. Very smart AI with their own special equipments to make each and every one unique. Some of them are even so smart of an AI with very special equipments to the point where the internet calls them raid bosses. But they're not actually raid bosses, are they? They're just normal amiibos which are very, smart compared to the previous ones. So then I have the idea. What if the bosses from the story mode got their own amiibos? Okay. So I'm going to pretty much separate this video into 3 parts. And the first part isn't even going to be how they attack, but rather how you train them and how will they move. Because certain bosses like Master Hand we've already played as. We already know how he'll fly around. A simple touch of the joystick allows him to move around. And the same thing will go for Marks. As for Marks can pretty much work in the exact same system. Giga Bowser and that Mecha boss will both pretty much work the exact same as well. Where they work like your average Smash Bros character. You move left or right via the joystick and press your jump button to obviously jump. However, these guys would only have one jump due to their massive, pretty much size. The dragon I felt would be similar, however would be a mix of both the walk and the jump. He'd walk around, but whenever you press the jump button, instead you'd actually enter the fly mode, where then he'll be able to fly around just like Marks and Master Hand. 2 that will probably be the most difficult to implement though, will quite simply be none other than Dracula and Ganondorf. And the reason is simple. Neither of the bosses exactly walk around that much during their fights. So how would they work? They can't just stand still and spam attacks. And I thought the way they'd work is they just work the exact same as Giga Bowser, where they just walk around at a slow speed. However, I was thinking that instead of having a jump for good old Dracula, instead he would just teleport. It would work the exact same as your usual teleport. They just go from one position to another, randomly generated. There's nothing too spectacular there. Another thing to note is their moveset. What moves would you actually be able to use these guys? Well, I was thinking if they were able to translate Master Hand's moves, that's probably one of the most difficult ones. I'm sure the other bosses they'll be able to work out as well. And in case you're curious, the way you train these bosses is when you scan in the amiibo, you unlock that boss. You'll be able to play as the boss and train your amiibo via playing as them, teaching them the different moves that you want them to use or not use. Something else to note though, is that you cannot play as these guys online or during story mode. Only offline to train your amiibo. However, the amiibos can be used online, but when they are used online, it would either be a 1v3 with that boss amiibo versus 3 other amiibos / players, or against another boss amiibo. The second thing to talk about is actually fighting each boss. For instance, we already know what moves they'd be using, we already see them do that inside of their fights. However, each and every one has a health bar, which if you don't know, every time you attack them, that health bar slowly goes down. You only beat the boss once it depletes down to 0. I just thought I'd pretty much clarify that. And I think each and every boss would have a certain amount of health, but instead of it being a health bar, it would be stamina mode. They have a certain amount of HP, every time you hit them, HP goes down, once they hit 0, you die, yada yada. However, I think the 2 characters that will be the most different will be none other than Marks, and once again Dracula. Dracula is probably the most problematic because he actually has 2 forms. Dracula, when he's defeated, turns into his beast form, shown on screen right now. And this has an entirely different moveset, and I feel like the way it would work is one of 2. Either he can switch out between the 2 forms just like Mithra and Pyra, or while all the other bosses would have 700 HP, Dracula would only have 300. However, when defeated, he will gain 400 HP and move on to his second form, where then his moveset and appearance will be changed, and basically, in other words, he'll be in his beast form. The other problem is Marks. Marks seems to have an extremely high amount of attack, yet extremely low amount of defense. In other words, every time he attacks you, your number is going to increase at a rapid rate. So while the other bosses might deal 20-30% to you, Marks seems to deal 50%, just from pure speculation. But then is the quickest to defeat. So I think if the other bosses will have 700 HP, he'll have 500 to counteract that. The other bosses are quite easy to explain, they all just have 700 HP, there's nothing to it. I'd also like to mention, before I forget of course, each of these bosses, instead of having 3 slots to equip spirits, instead will have 4. Purely because both they're bosses, and B, we want these guys to be powerful. I feel like this would open a lot of combination of spirits that could be used to make a very unique and deadly boss. We want these guys to be powerful, but not too powerful. I feel like 4 is a pretty good amount, but 5 might be too much, and 3 is too little. The main problem with these bosses is one thing. Each and every one of these guys has an attack which, if spammed, can make it very difficult to beat them. Purely because they are so good that you just won't be able to hit them at all. For instance, Master Hand's slap attack can just KO you off the stage in 2 seconds. And because it's so rapid, you'll never actually be able to get a chance to hit him. One way I was thinking that Nintendo might be able to patch this is simply if they are recharge time. Every time a boss attacks, they'll have 3 to 5 seconds left to wait before they can use another attack. They can move during this time, they just won't be able to attack. For instance, Bowser's basic punch might only have 1 to 2 seconds of recharge time. However, something as powerful as, say, I don't know, Marks' cannon will have a 5-second recharge before he can attack again. It's a very powerful move.